It was at that point that I saw a claw reach its way out of the pit as Sylvester began to pull himself out, peering outside of the dust that was just beginning to settle, growling at me somewhat as he lifted himself back up, and without much ado, returned to his regular posture, getting ready for another round. However, I could already see a difference, for his breathing was steady and calm. Now, he seemed to be, well, a bit lackluster for breath, panting a bit, and for good reason. Looking at his chest, I could see the point that I impacted with my punch. I could still see the freaking outline of my fist in his sternum, and it did not look well. He was holding posture, but I could tell he was still hurting from that punch.
Hope you enjoyed that,
Sylvester said.
I won't be giving you another opportunity. Mr. Hollowfield was right. I was going far too easy on you, but those movements of yours were flawless. There's no question of your skill now, so I won't be blindly rushing in, half-hearted and half-speed. Do expect my next attack to be far more fierce. Well, it's about time, Sylvester. Honestly, I was thinking that was a little weak. It felt like you were moving in slow motion. I'm not gonna lie, for a minute, I actually believed that I was just that much stronger than you, which honestly would have both been pretty awesome, but also pretty terrible. Terrible, you say?
Lester said, looking across to me.
What exactly do you mean by that? Well, it's simple. One's own strength can often be measured by fighting strong opponents, but if you're so strong that no one is a worthy opponent, then how are you expected to grow? In order to grow stronger as a fighter, you require to come into conflict with those who are also strong. It only stands to reason that once you're at the very top, that it becomes much harder to climb any higher, because there's no challenge. There's no one standing overhead, no goal to reach. This can be a test of a warrior's resolve, so to speak. Will he fall to monotony if he stands stronger than everyone else? Something that I haven't had to face yet. Honestly, I've been dreading the idea of it. I don't want to be the strongest in the world. I don't want to stand over everyone else. I want to fight. I want to be able to face challenges, to continue to develop and grow. Because standing on top is just another way of saying you're standing still. That you're stuck in your ways, nowhere to progress to, no growth to be had. To be honest, I can't think of anything more dull. So, whatever power you're stowing back, don't hold back because you think I'm new to this. I only have 5 minutes. Make it worth it, Sylvester.
Sylvester began to bare his teeth, growling in my direction.
Very well,
he said, rushing in again, this time far faster, no longer moving in slow motion. Now it felt like he was actually keeping pace. He rushed in with a flurry of kicks, one after another in quick procession. As they came in, I did my best to dodge, blocking a few of them off, but they were most definitely solid, both in terms of speed and power. He had suddenly pushed it to an entirely different level. Now, this actually felt like a fight, and whilst I was dodging and blocking his kicks, suddenly saw a claw rushing in my direction. I barely managed to duck, evading out of it, but it was a double play, because there was a kick waiting for me. I had to roll out of the way, and only just barely managed to avoid the follow-up kick. By the time I found myself back to my feet, Sylvester was already there, reeling down on me with a kick, I raised one arm up to guard. The impact was so heavy, I felt the ground beneath my feet give way, my feet sinking into it. That was most definitely a heavy impact. I could feel the vibrations in my bones. It was at that point Sylvester backed off again, to stance. Returning to his stance. He was watching me, closely, away. Him backing away wasn't just a stroke of luck. He saw it. His eyes are definitely quick. A kick with force like that behind it would normally stun an enemy, even if they guarded it. But he saw that I wasn't stunned. I was about to lash out with a counterattack, and he tracked my eyes. He's good. Better than I originally gave him credit for. And he has good instincts on top of it. I raised myself back up, taking a stance, and a deep breath. Okay, Sylvester, let's see how your defense works in high gear. This time I rushed in on him. A flurry of rapid attacks, punches, kicks, elbows. Sylvester did his best to try to guard, for he was finding that a very difficult task. One impact after another slipped through his guard, impacting his body, his legs. At one point he tried to launch a counterattack, swiping out with one of his claws. I pulled just beyond its reach, and as it passed, grabbed it, and it back, twisting his arm back, and at the same time, reeling over it, coming completely off of the ground, lifting my body up, over his arm, and as my body passed over, delivering a kick straight to the face that sent Sylvester spinning. He was still in a whirl as my feet made contact in the ground. A moment's delay or hesitation, I rushed. I was there before he could even try to stop spinning. He was still disorientated, so much so that he couldn't block a single one of the hits that I laid in from that point on. A flurry of attacks so fast, it would make anyone's head spin. And to finish things off, I pulled a step around, moving just to the left of Sylvester, as he was still reeling from the strikes. In a single motion, my back now facing him, both my arms clenched together, holding my hands tightly, firmly. A whirl hammer fist, impacting him directly into the chest, and once again, sending Sylvester flying. The impact was so hard I swear I could feel bone crack. I'd hear the wind tearing itself apart as my arms passed through it. It almost sounded like there was a sonic boom for a moment, but maybe that's just my enhanced hearing. Sylvester went flying, far past the edge of the circle. The people that were gathered around actually had to duck, rolling out of the way or trying their best to move, some of them barely making it. Sylvester flew by, this time rolling several times across the ground, tearing small grooves in as he did, before finally whirling around and managing to grasp into the dirt, reaching his claws down and burying them in, tearing grooves as he slid the direction that I hit him. Finally, as Sylvester finally came to a stop, he started to cough up blood. He most definitely was feeling that. For a moment, he started to stammer, looking like he was having trouble even staying on his feet. He was gasping for air. Both his legs and his arms looked shaky at best. There's no way he can keep going like that. He's already out of juice, I thought to myself, staring at him as he tried to stammer his way to his feet. As his eyes finally began to seem to adjust, stopping their shaking, glaring me daggers as he growled in my direction, furiously baring his teeth.
You know, you can still give it up, Sylvester.
I called across to him as he continued to growl in my direction furiously, still coughing up small amounts of blood.
This isn't anywhere near over,
Sylvester called out. It was at that point I began to see a billowing energy around Sylvester, like a red aura to rise from his body. As he raised his head into the sky and let go a howl, an exceptionally loud one. As he did, a gust of wind flew out from the direction that Sylvester was standing in. And as crazy as it sounds, I started to see his wounds healing themselves up. I saw what looked like broken bones and ribs starting to snap themselves back into place. His legs stopped being shaky as Sylvester opened his mouth and let out what looked like a gout of steam, like he was putting off pure heat, breathing it out.
You did better than I thought you would,
Sylvester said.
But this is far from over. You're still a newborn. Your strength and speed, and even your martial arts skill, may seem to be superior to mine. It appears that that's the case. But wolves have very many weapons, and you have far from seen them all.
I peered at him, glaring daggers at me. I began to notice his nails growing longer, even his teeth getting bigger. Everything about him seemed to start to bulk up. I began to see spine-like protrusions, objects starting to stick out of his body. And as I looked, they looked like bone. Like bones were starting to jut out from him, from his arms, from his legs, even from his spinal cord. It was like his skeleton was actually getting thicker, harder, starting to take up more space inside of him. It was freaking weird. Skin grew more taut and seemed to only barely contain the hardened skeleton within it. As Sylvester let out a billowing roar in my direction and began to rush in, rapidly moving towards me. It was at that point that I felt something. My body start to shrink down, getting smaller with every passing second. And in no time at all, I was back to my human form, with that massive monster, Sylvester, still heading right for me. Yeah, this is bad.